So that's where we left on Thursday. So the origin of fear. You mentioned fear as being part of our basic underlying emotional pain. How does fear arise? And why is there so much of it in people's life? And isn't a certain amount of fear just healthy self protection? If I didn't have a fear of fire, I might put my hand in it and get burnt. The reason why you don't put your hand in the fire is not because of fear. It's because you know that you will get burnt. You don't need fear to avoid unnecessary danger, just a minimum of intelligence and common sense. For such practical matters, it is useful to apply the lessons learned in the past. Now, if someone threatened you with fire or with physical violence, you might experience something like fear. This is an instinctive shrinking back from danger, but not the psychological condition of fear that we are talking about here. The psychological condition of fear is divorced from any concrete and true immediate danger. It comes in many forms: unease, worry, anxiety, nervousness, tension, dread, phobia, and so on. This kind of psychological fear is always of something that might happen, not of something that is happening now. You are in the here and now. And while your mind is in the future, this creates an anxiety gap. And if you're identified with your mind and have lost touch with the power and the simplicity of the now, that anxiety gap will be your constant companion. You can always cope with the present moment, but you cannot cope with something that is only a mind projection. You cannot cope with the future. Moreover, as long as you are identified with your mind, the ego runs your life. And as I pointed out earlier, because of its phantom nature and despite elaborate defense mechanisms, the ego is very vulnerable and secure, and it sees itself as constantly under threat. This, by the way, is the case even if the ego is outwardly very confident. Now, remember that an emotion is the body's reaction to your mind. What message is the body receiving continuously from the ego, the false mind-made self? Danger. I am under threat. And what is the emotion generated by the continuous message? Fear, of course. So why does this happen? We talked about fear a lot of times. I would like to speak on this particular four-letter word called fear. Now, what exactly is fear? If you look at it from a different angle, so fear represents a false evidence which is appearing to be real. It's not reality because since it is in the future, so there is a probability of that event or that thing to happen the way we want it or to the way we do not want it. There's a 50% probability to go both sides. So not necessary it will happen, and not necessary it will not happen. But mind or ego ऐसा उसको trick कर दे. It's see, because anything that is in the future, that's not reality. And it's nothing but a projection of your mind. And if your projection of your mind and your manifestation is so strong, you can actually make it happen and get into that phase where you did not want it to go. It happens with a lot of people I know. They are fearing, oh yaar usko chot na lag jaye, chot na lag jaye, chot na lag jaye, and suddenly you see ki usko chot lag gayi. What was that? It was a pure case of pure manifestation at play. ये नहीं बोला हमने कि ठीक रहेगा, बढ़िया रहेगा, खुश रहेगा. No. The whole concept was running in the mind, चोट ना लग जाए, चोट ना लग जाए, चोट ना लग जाए. लग गई. So that's how manifestation works. So a lot of times where we feel that, we did not want this to be, but it happened because you gave that thought energy. Na? कोई चीज आपके फ्यूचर में है और आप उसको एनर्जीज दे रहे हो towards the negative side of it, that's equally manifestation. So manifestation does not mean for the good. Manifestation or law of attraction means like attracts like. Or what you think, what you give energy to happens. What you give, you receive. अब वो गिविंग आपकी किस प्रमाइस से आ रही है, जो भी आप सोच रहे हो या जो भी आप अट्रैक्ट कर रहे हो, आप किस फ्रीक्वेंसी या किस इमोशन की वाइब्रेशनल फ्रीक्वेंसी पे हो, that is what is going to come into your, that is what you are going to attract. So please be very, very careful whenever you are talking about a future event. But yes, coming back to this book, when our awareness, our attention, our consciousness is in the now, ना वो किसी पास्ट इवेंट को सोच रहा है कि क्या हुआ था, कैसे हो यार, ये हो गया था, वो हो गया था, ना ही वो किसी फ्यूचर इवेंट के बारे में सोच रहा है, कल क्या होगा, परसों क्या होगा, एक महीने बाद क्या होगा. Then there is no fear, there is no anxiety. Fear or anxiety will only come when we start thinking about a future event and start having negative things, negative thought processes in our mind, and start giving it energy by thinking more on those lines. Whereas that is a event which is probably going to happen, 50% not going to happen, 50-50 chance. So it's a false evidence appearing to be real. अभी reality नहीं हुआ है वो, but आप अगर उसको ज़्यादा energies दोगे, whatever kind of energies and whatever whatever vibrational frequency you are coming from, that's the energy you're going to give, and that's what you're going to attract. But if you just be in the now and stop thinking or stop taking your attention to the future, enjoy the moment. I'm not saying don't plan for the future. Plan. प्लानिंग के लिए तो किसी ने नहीं बोला ना, बट जो प्लानिंग आपने करनी है उसको ले आज तो आप एक्शन तो लोगे ना, एक्शन तो आज में ही लोगे. फॉर एग्जाम्पल आई से by the next 20 years I want to have this much money in my bank account. I'll have to start today, na? So I have to be in the now, even if it is my future plan. I can't be in the future all the time and say हाँ 20 साल बाद जो होगा, बट मैंने एक्शन तो कुछ किया ही नहीं. अब मैंने तो 20 साल बाद फिट होना था, पर जिम तो मैं गया ही नहीं. वो इन द नाउ तो एक्शन होगा ना, तभी वो फ्यूचर आएगा. So bringing the awareness, bringing the attention, bringing the conscious in the now eliminates the fear. Because जितना आप कल के बारे में, परसों के किसी एक फ्यूचर इवेंट के बारे में सोचोगे, उतना आप नेगेटिव सोचना, उतना एंग्शियस होना शुरू हो जाओगे, और उतना आपकी अवेयरनेस जो है फ्यूचर इवेंट में रहेगी, इन द नाउ से हिलेगी. Whereas life is in the now. The power is in the now. That is where the flow is. That is where everything, the connection, the the connection with the source, the oneness, everything is in the now. जब भी हम अपनी attention या awareness को past या future में लेके जाएंगे, it's going to create a question mark. Fear seems to have many causes: fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of being hurt, and so on. But ultimately, all fear is the ego's fear of death, of annihilation. To the ego, death is always around the corner. In this mind identified state, fear of death affects every aspect of your life. For example, ever such a seemingly trivial and a normal thing as the compulsive need to be right in an argument make the other person wrong, defending the mental position with which you have identified is due to the fear of death. If you identify with the mental position, and then if you are wrong, your mind based sense of self is seriously threatened with annihilation. So you, as the ego, cannot afford to be wrong. To be wrong is to die. Wars have been fought over this, and countless relationships have broken down. Once you have disidentified from your mind, whether you are right or wrong makes no difference to your sense of self at all. So the forcefully compulsive and deeply unconscious need to be right, which is a form of violence, will no longer be there. You can state dearly and firmly how you feel or what you think, but will be no aggressiveness or defensiveness about it. Your sense of self is then derived from a deeper and truer place within yourself, not from the mind. Watch out for any kind of defensiveness within yourself. What are you defending? An illusionary identity, an image in your mind, a fictitious entity. By making this pattern conscious, by witnessing it, you disidentify from it. In the light of your consciousness, the unconscious pattern will then quickly dissolve. This is the end of all arguments and power games, which are so corrosive to relationships. Power over others is weakness disguised as strength. True power is within and it is available to you now. So, anyone who is identified with their mind and therefore disconnected from their true power, their deeper self rooted in being, will have fear as their constant companion. The number of people who have gone beyond mind is as yet extremely small. So you can assume that virtually everyone you meet or know lives in a state of fear. Only the intensity of it varies. It fluctuates between anxiety and dread at one end of the scale and a vague unease and distant sense of threat at the other. Most people become conscious of it when it takes on one of its more acute forms. So ultimately fear हर एक के अंदर है, चाहे थोड़ा है चाहे ज्यादा है. But fear is only, again, a projection of the mind. See, at the end of the day, whatever happens is just a fact. But what we make out of it, or how we perceive it, is from the mind. And if you talk about the ultimate fear, which is the fear of death, and that fear of death is actually false. Come to think of it, you as a person do not die. But yes, this physical uniform given to you on School of Earth, called your physical body, that dies. Definitely dies. And then probably, you have a different reincarnation, you'll have a different uniform, a different body. But you as a person don't die. But since you've associated yourself that this body is me, मैं तो हुई ये बॉडी है, तो हमें वो डर होता है कि यार जिस ये तो हम मर गए. So death, fear of death is the highest fear of anybody on planet Earth. But that fear of death is a myth in itself. In reality, it is just that the body that dies. So you are not your mind. and you are not your body. तो अगर वो बॉडी की फिजिकल डेथ हो जाती है, that doesn't mean you die. But this fear of death is so prevalent wherever you go that it can drive people insanely crazy. And I've seen a lot of people who have this extreme fear. So लोगों के पास तो छोटे छोटे fears होते हैं ना, कल क्या होगा, बॉस क्या बोलेगा, ये whether things will happen as per our plan or not, whatever. And the highest fear is the fear of death. So intensity चाहे जितनी मर्जी छोटी हो या बड़ी हो, थोड़ा थोड़ा हर एक का fear होता है. और fear है क्या? Fear is a false evidence which is appearing to be real, or just because it is not the way you wanted it to be, तो हम वो सोचना शुरू कर देते हैं, यार कैसे होगा अगर ये ऐसे नहीं हुआ तो. Remember, it is the projection of your mind, not you. ये माइंड का था, ये ईगो का था, ये ईगो का है, वही तो प्रोजेक्ट कर रहा है, वही तो सिग्नल दे रहा है. और क्योंकि हमने आज तक अपनी एसोसिएशन माइंड और बॉडी में रखी है कि ये तो मैं हूं, मतलब ये मेरी प्रोजेक्शन है. Am I audible, guys? Can you hear me? Hello?
Your voice is again cracking.
Because I got this message right now कि मेरा internet issue is unstable. Better now? I'm audible, guys?
Yep.
Yeah, Thapa, you want to ask something? You raised your hand. You're mute. Thapa, you're on mute.
Sorry, thanks. So I know you've sort of touched this before, and the couple of lines which go from, so anyone who's identified with their mind and therefore disconnected from their true power, their deeper self-rooted in being, will have fear as their constant companion. I wonder if you can elaborate a little bit on, I know you've told us before that we are not our body and we are not our mind, and we are being, and by being, what I have understood is that the universe is getting things done from you, from the context of a being, from the context of somebody who's in motion of fulfilling his destiny, or that thing. So
gathering the experience and the wisdom.
Sorry?
Experiencing something and gathering the wisdom.
Yeah, so if you can just a little bit elaborate on when he says
fear is the constant companion.
No, not that. That's understood. The deeper self-rooted in being. So someone who's deeper self-rooted in the being. What would he be thinking when these thoughts come to his mind of the constant fear and the constant ego trying to create a life and death situation out of everything? What would a self-rooted being think?
उसको fear नहीं होगा ना, because he's in the now. Because he knows ये जितने भी fear है ये mind के बनाए हुए हैं. अगर मेरे को कोई एक एक्सपीरियंस सीखना है तो मुझे वो सीखना है. अगर उसमें मुझे पेन होनी है तो मुझे पेन होनी है. It's part of the experience. See, at the end of the day, what you are here, with a certain karmic baggage, and you're here to experience something, that experience will come to you. हम कोई भी यहाँ पे ये सारा कुछ करने से, following the path of spirituality or anything, we cannot just ignore our karmas. Karma तो होंगे. If you are meant to experience certain things, you will experience. That's whole part. But आपको उसका डर नहीं होगा ना, because you will come from a premise of connected to the true power. There is no disconnection there. When you are connected to the true power, you know that then you are, it's like you are watching it from an overview that, okay, this is an experience that has to be experienced.
So in other words, you would be in 100% acceptance with what is happening right now, and you are just probably just focusing on the actions, the choices you are making at the moment, probably some manifestations which you're doing as well, and not be, and of course, be watching all this, whatever thoughts is coming in your mind from a spectator, from a person, and be ready with anything which comes your way as as an experiential journey.
Somewhat similar, but you use a phone, right? Now, if that phone is not connected, or you have a computer, it's not connected to the power, will it work? No. But yes, when you are connected to that true power, you get that energy. You are in that oneness with that true being. That अगर आपके पास कोई ऐसा experience भी आ रहा है जिसमें you have to go through a lot of pain or something which is uncomfortable, you will gather that strength to bear that pain. That also happens. But अगर हम वो माइंड प्रोजेक्शन में ही चलते रहेंगे तो सारा टाइम डर से घिरे रहेंगे ना, because then there is a disconnection.
I mean, then you are then basically making a choice of not making any choice, just accepting everything, but not choosing to have an alternative course of action.
No, you choose. ऐसा नहीं है, you don't make the choice. There is something known as free will and there is something known as God's will. So free will भी होता है, because see, God's will is for you to get to a place, but for getting to that place there are 5 ways. मैंने दिल्ली जाना है, मैं गाड़ी में भी जा सकता हूँ, साइकिल भी जा सकता हूँ, ट्रेन में भी जा सकता हूँ, फ्लाइट में जा सकता हूँ. I can go anywhere. So that choice is between us, but the consequence is getting to Delhi. That's God's will. He'll get you to Delhi, but how is your choice?
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry. You mean to say that whatever is destined has to happen?
Yeah.
So whatever is happening, it's according to God's will. But how we are doing, it's our choice.
Yeah, that's your free will. Like I shared the example, Delhi jana hai, that's God's will, that you have to go to Delhi. But whether you take the train or you take the cycle or you take a car or you take a flight, that's your choice.
So how about this karma thing? Like whatever we do, we get back. So if God is creating and doing everything, how is karma into our action then?
No. Karma is see, the whole concept of karma is cause and effect. जैसी करनी वैसी भरनी. So जो आपने किया है, that has to see, because at the end of the day, how will we be an evolved being if we have not experienced everything? सारे लोग यही सोचती है कि यार ऐसे क्यों? Why can't everything be good? Why is Earth's duality on Earth? Because you need to evolve as a being and have all experiences. जब मेरे पास, जिसे कहते हैं ना, सारे experiences का essence, सारे experiences का wisdom होगा, then I will be in that altered state of consciousness. Then I would be an evolved being. Then I would graduate from School of Earth. So not necessary जो आज आपके साथ हो रहा है किसी और और कहीं previous reincarnations में opposite हुआ होगा. Quite, you never know. But yeah, to be an evolved soul, you have to have all experience. So you need to be a victim and you need to be a victimizer, both.
Arjun, one question. Then how does law of manifestation work? Because we say that we can manifest what we want.
Yeah, why do you think law of manifestation works? Why law of manifestation will only bring that thing to you? Why not 36 other thousand things? Why the thought of more money at that time? Why not the thought of a better health? मेरा माइंड एक चीज या दो चीज क्यों उठा रहा है और कुछ क्यों नहीं उठा रहा? फॉर एग्जाम्पल, if it's a manifestation that I want to manifest for financial abundance, why is it that I'm not manifesting a world tour or any other random thought? Why just this? That's manifestation.
So that's because we choose it. Now we want financial abundance.
नहीं,
So
why only financial abundance? उस टाइम पे आपको किसी और चीज का थॉट क्यों नहीं आया? You could have thought about a better health.
Because you are in a situation that you may be lacking some money, so you want to attract more money. Right?
Why these things were created like that?
You're saying why lack of money in your life?
No, I'm not saying why lack of money. Lack of money से आपकी manifestation आई for financial abundance. So there is a flow of everything towards a specific direction. That's God's will. Specific direction में आपको लेके जा रहा है.
So then might as well leave everything to the universe and surrender, and then
If
let
it was
what
that
happens.
easy, फिर तो मजा ही आ जाता.
Arjun, but this line, I think, इसी को denote कर रही है that their deeper self-rooted in being would be God's will, right?
See, Sabar, it is saying anyone who is identified with their mind and therefore disconnected from the true power, their deeper self rooted in being. मतलब जिसका deeper self rooted in being है, वो तो connected to power है, but जो deeper self rooted in being से disconnected है, disconnected from the true power, will have fear. So it is using that catch line to display both. So
no, I understand. But somebody who's truly deeply self-rooted in the being would be in 100% acceptance to God's will, would probably not be in any way making any choices,
Sorry, repeat. I couldn't hear.
Oh, sorry. Okay, am I on mute? No, okay. So no, I'm saying for somebody who is connected to the source and be deeply self-rooted in their being, wouldn't he be making choices as they come to him out of love, out of something which the universe has given to him, or showing the universe which is showing the path to him, rather than making a choice of choosing his own path and getting to the consequence, somebody who's self-rooted in the being.
Really don't know what you are trying to ask.
Okay, don't worry. I think I'm way off the topic.
You can take it one more shot.
No, thank you. I'm fine.
Papa, you can understand.
The ego's search for wholeness. Another aspect of the emotional pain that is an intrinsic part of the egoic mind is a deep-seated sense of lack or incompleteness, of not being whole.
Papa, can I have your petition?
Just a sec. If it is conscious, it manifests as the unsettling and constant feeling of not being worthy or good enough. If it is unconscious, it will only be felt indirectly as an intense craving, wanting, and needing. In either case, people will often enter into a compulsive pursuit of ego gratification and things to identify with in order to fill this hole they feel within. So they strive after possessions, money, success, power, recognition, or a special relationship. Basically, so that they can feel better about themselves, feel more complete. But even when they attain all these things, they soon find that the hole is still there, that it is bottomless, that they are really in trouble because they cannot delude themselves anymore. Well, they can and do, but it gets more difficult. As long as the egoic mind is running your life, you cannot truly be at ease. You cannot be at peace or fulfilled except for brief intervals when you obtained what you wanted, when a craving had just been fulfilled. Since the ego is a derived sense of self, it needs to identify with external things. It needs to be both defended and fed constantly. The most common ego identifications have to do with possessions, the work you do, social status, and recognition. Knowledge and education, physical appearance, special abilities, relationships, personal and family history, belief systems, and often also political, nationalistic, racial, religious, and other collective identifications. None of these is you. Do you find this frightening, or is it a relief to know this? All of these things you have to relinquish sooner or later. Perhaps you find it as yet hard to believe, and I'm certainly not asking you to believe that your identity cannot be found in any of those things. You will know the truth of it for yourself. You will know it at the latest when you feel death approaching. Death is a stripping away of all that is not you. The secret of life is to die before you die and find that there is no death.